programme. Right now, 5:36. So later on this morning, John Lewis are going to reveal their half-yearly results, and we're expecting that the financial performance is unlikely to be pretty. We're going to preview the results in about 20 minutes' time. But how we're shopping and where we're shopping is changing. Over 100 years ago, what really had changed the game was the catalogue, the buying Bible, we could say. In the 1930s, Freemans dominated the mail order landscape. The big book at its peak, it really was a big book. In the 70s and the 80s, ran to more than 1,000 pages. It landed on the doormats of more than 2 million homes twice a year. Well, it's all going to change. Today, they stop printing it, the last of Britain's mail-order shopping giants to do so. Well, Richard Cristofoli is the Chief Customer Officer at Freemans, who's on the line. Richard, good morning.
Morning, Rosie.
It's sort of a moment in history, isn't it, today? You finally say there isn't a market for the catalogue. Time's up.
It really is, yes. And it's reflective really of how our customers have changed the way they shop. The reality today is all of our business is online. 80% of our visits come from a mobile. And it's not about only how they shop, but it's also about how they look for inspiration. So social media, digital, that's where they seek their inspiration. And it enables us to offer loads more choice. So you talk about the 1,000-page catalogue. We used to have a few thousand lines available. Now we have over 50,000 products online. So it really is part of a transformation journey we've been on over the last 3 years. But you're right, it is a real moment in our history.
What made you sort of cling on to the catalogue? Because presumably for the last few years, maybe the last 10 years, not many of your customers were going as their first point of contact with your brand to the catalogue.
Well, you're absolutely right. And we sort of began this journey 3 years ago when customer numbers were falling away. And we set a very aggressive journey over the following 3 years to move away and move into the digital department store space, which is what we've created. And we're going again at today with our new Made You Look campaign. And we've tested a number of things in those years. We've not gone cold turkey on the catalogue. We've tested magazine style formats, etc. But every time the digital media, things like TV, perform much better for us. So today marks the kind of final evolution of that with the launch of our new campaign and the launch and the relaunch of the site this morning.
Tracking back the history of the catalogue actually shows us some just fascinating things about how we used to shop and also just the different rights of men and women. So explain to me how it operated in the 1930s when you had these agents who were men doing the kind of business of the distribution and the selling, because women literally couldn't legally at the time.
That's right. I mean, kind of like, it's astonishing when you look back at the role that retail has played in the UK's history. This is, a prime example of it. I think the great thing that we've done is, as we've transformed and changed the businesses, we've kept a number of the good things about our past. Obviously, that was one of the things that kind of like was just legally binding to us. But this is a brand that's always been about empowering women. It was at the forefront of fashion and trend in the 1960s, using people like Lulu and Twiggy very early on in their careers. And we continue to do that today in terms of our new sort of fashion range, which we've launched today. It's the first time in 20 years we put the Freeman's name to a contemporary fashion range, really targeted at the 40-plus woman who wants to look stylish and is massively underserved in the marketplace. So, but you're right, that place in history is something I think that many people hold very dear.
Yes, I think in the 30s it's that women couldn't negotiate credit agreements.
Correct, that's right.
Yeah, that then changed, and you had sort of almost a total role reversal from your agents being men to then women in about the 60s.
That's absolutely right. So, and this whole thing of sort of like democratizing style and therefore making it more accessible, as you said, via the ability to spread payments. And that's something we still do today. It's a very thriving part of our business, and we're constantly reinventing that element of our business, is really important. It's part of that transformational change that the country went through, as you said, 60s, 70s, but also even into the sort of modern digital era in terms of, very easily spreading the cost.
Yeah. So at that time in the 60s, someone would come to your house, collect your orders, you'd pay for goods in cash weekly, and you'd see them again the next week. Paying by the week right now, we're in a situation where people don't have very much disposable income. How do you manage making sure that, you've got a thriving business, but you're not sort of getting people into debt, paying for things that they actually just wouldn't be able to afford if they had to pay it all up front?
Sure. Well, we're very, very cautious, very, very careful about our credit offer. Very, very few customers of our customers get into any sort of like difficulties in that way. The vast majority of them pay in installments, but that flexibility of paying in installments helps them manage their cash flow in and out of the household budget. And that's never been more apparent than in the last sort of 12 to 18 months with the cost of living crisis. It becomes only more relevant, but we also see it in the way in which we try to change our product offer. So we have a partnership with Bon Prix, Europe's great value fashion brand. We've got a whole Ways to Save initiative, which is all about energy saving devices. The air fryer has been an incredible success story for us over the past 12 months. So it's about spreading the cost, but also saving money and making kind of like, that household budget go that little bit further.
Some of the credit plans you have are quite expensive. I'm just looking at your website now.
It's very competitive with the marketplace, actually, I have to say. And it's certainly not at that, at the high end of online payday loans or anything like that at all. We're very much in the pack with all of our mainstream credit competitors. So we're not out of line there. And the fact that, hundreds of thousands of people choose to pay that way, in many instances, if you open an account, you don't have to pay anything for 5 weeks. You can pay the whole thing off in one go if you want without any interest payments at all. So, as I said, many people use it in very different ways, in ways that suit them and their lifestyle. And you remember, to your point about sort of like, our 118-year history, people have been doing that with us for a very long time. We have some very long-standing loyal customers who love the flexibility that it gives them.
Yeah, just at what cost? A handbag isn't necessarily an essential that's worth getting into debt over, for example.
I don't think any of our customers do that. Actually, it's kind of like, as I said, it really is about spreading that cost. So it's not about that at all. I think, we have many positive anecdotes from people constantly, actually, when we're researching, even when we were researching our new Made You Look campaigns that goes live today, we had lots of customers saying to us, actually, if it weren't for Freemans, I wouldn't have had a bike as a kid. I wouldn't have been able to afford this as a kid. That ability to spread the cost from their parents, spreading the cost over time, has been all about sort of democratizing the availability of product, and that's as valid today as it was then.
Richard, thank you very much for sharing a little bit of moment of history in the business of Freemans. Richard Cristofoli is Chief Customer Officer of Freemans, who have decided that the last day of catalogues is today. I mean, it's kind of even amazing that they were still running up until this point. I wonder when the last time was that you actually looked through a catalogue. I sort of grew up in the Argos generation, maybe, of getting the Argos catalogue and getting a highlighter out and circling everything you might want for Christmas with very ridiculous expectation that some of it might all arrive on Christmas Day. I'm sure it's a parent's nightmare to have those in the hands of your